Utilization is key for virtual urgent care. If we could put that in front of some of these plan designs and allow the member to know that this might be a $0 out-of-pocket cost to them, that let us be your first line of defense rather than be like, oh, I do have a telemedicine on the back of my insurance card. I'm not sure what it does.
Welcome to Self-Funded with Spencer, sponsored by Recuro Health, ClaimDoc, and PlanSight. Whether we're discussing innovative new healthcare strategies, exposing hidden revenue streams or misaligned incentives, or even just cheering on the next generation of this industry, we promise you that you're going to learn something. So thank you for joining us for another great conversation about the future of healthcare. That's one thing that I actually do believe that AI will bring to the forefront is like AI is going to do a lot of amazing things, especially when it comes for like repetitive tasks and data entry and analysis. But what it'll also do is I think it'll have the opposite effect of reinforcing how valuable in-person interaction is. So whether it's live entertainment, live meetings, live podcasts like this, like you cannot displace humanity. And so I think people will crave that even more as more of those tasks are taken off their plate and done by machines. Maybe I'm just betting with bias, but I do believe that's probably true. And I even started the podcast in person during COVID with the hypothesis that people wanted to get out of their house and they wanted to sit down with somebody else.
100%.
You know, so and I have people still ask, well, can we do a virtual episode? And I'm like, no, even though I really want that person on, I'm like, if I did it for you, then I'd have to do it for everybody else. And so if it becomes an impediment to be on the show, that's okay. You know, like it's all right. We'll come back to it at some other point or you just won't be on, right? Like, and I'm okay with saying that.
Production's great here, right? Very different than like recording, not knowing what type of camera they have set up or what their lighting looks like.
What's their bandwidth, on their internet, all those things. I call it controlling as many variables as possible. With Nathaniel here in the studio and all that good stuff, like the variables are controlled to a degree. So the only thing that we can't control is the conversation, but everything else is taken care of. And so I like that a lot. So why don't we start? That's a good way to start, John.
I'm in.
All right, cool. So we're going to start a podcast. I'm sitting down with Jon O'Toole. You are with Recuro Health. I got that right. And you're the VP of Sales.
Correct.
Boom. Checked everyone. How are you doing, man?
Good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
John, it's been a pleasure, man. You and I have been, probably been meeting, for coffee and lunch for past couple years, maybe?
At least,
yeah. And this feels destined to have happened. It just finally we got it scheduled. And we actually had it scheduled at one point last year.
I forgot about that.
And had to reschedule, but it is what it is, man. But really excited to have you on, John. Before we get into your background and go deep into what Recuro is, why don't you lay the foundation for what you think this episode is going to be about for the listeners so they know what they're getting into?
About Recuro Health, I have some history of my own that kind of supports why I do what I do and why I'm passionate about virtual care and virtual primary care. So kind of share some of my experiences and why we might be an asset. Yeah,
I think you have a really powerful why story that you shared with me over coffee. And, as much as you want to get into that story, I welcome that just because I think people really genuinely want to understand like what motivates another human being to do what they do. And we've all found ourselves in healthcare for one reason or another. And every once in a while, people have a really, really good reason to be here. So why don't we do this? We'll go back, John, in your story as far as you want to go, man. But just tell us about yourself, who you are, how you got into healthcare, what'd you study in school, all that good stuff, man.
Oh, man. So from the Washington, D.C. area originally, went to college in Tennessee, wanted to play baseball there. Didn't work out, so came out of college, got into banking for almost 10 years I was in banking. Decided I wanted to go into healthcare. I had a chief HR officer tell me that I could probably do pretty well because I liked helping people.
What did you think about that, going from banking to healthcare? Like, were you skeptical or were you open to the idea?
I was open to the idea. Okay. Didn't really understand it because I was a business banker, so I was helping businesses save money, change banking relationships, because I was a partner of theirs, and that's like my motto is not to be a vendor, to be a partner. And so went to I said, well, if you think that's a great idea, I was like, can you make an introduction for me?
Okay.
And so she did. So practice leader of USI for Mid-Atlantic.
Okay.
So started the interview process with them. Coincidentally enough, my wife's father had just invested and took over a telemedicine company and gave me a nice little offer to say, hey, why don't you come down and start a family business with your wife, my daughter, And so we decided we packed up everything and we moved to Texas.
From Tennessee at that point? Or
No, we were in DC.
You were in DC then. Okay,
Yeah.
excuse me. Okay, so then, but were you a consultant for a while at USI or?
No.
Oh, you never, I ended
never
up getting
took
that
it.
job. Okay. So I mean, interesting how your career might have differed had you gone down that path, on the consulting side. You'd probably be a great consultant, man. I have no doubt. You kind of are already, just in a different capacity.
Yeah. I mean, I do look back on it sometimes and wonder. I even think about, could I do that still? But I'm really, extremely happy with the move that I made. We went through, the headaches and the growing pains of running a family business,
Yeah.
and expanding the land and expand model. And
So why was Texas the stop though? What brought you here specifically? Was that where it was located, that business?
That's where it was located.
Okay.
My wife's entire family was here. So our entire operation for Wellvia, the telemedicine company, was in Texas.
Did you know anything about telemedicine at that time?
No, I had no idea. He actually told me how hard could it be to sell telemedicine. And I'm like, I mean, you hear the stories like you're getting access to a doctor within less than 10 minutes. Like everybody should eat that up.
Yeah.
But I didn't understand the industry. So it was a grind. Like I was cold calling. I was doing
Were you calling on brokers or employers or both?
both.
Okay.
Because I really didn't know how to get into it. So it was learn by fire.
Trial by fire.
Yeah,
That's
trial by
exactly
fire.
what it sounds like. But I mean, that's a different world from the banking world. When you were in banking, did it still have a sales component to it though?
Yeah, I was in business development for the
Okay,
banking.
so you certainly could handle a cold call though. That wasn't an issue.
That wasn't an issue.
But it's knowing how to open that door, who to go to. Like, did you find the direct to employer channel was more fruitful? Was it going through consultants, a mixture of both?
I did. So I had some contacts in the direct to employer world that I was able to get some sales, some wins. I was able to cold call land me probably still one of my biggest clients till this day.
Wow.
As an early, telemedicine sales rep. And that kind of led me to understand, some of the other things that were going on. Your podcast, other people's podcasts kind of opened my eyes to the industry and self-funding and the other verticals that there might be opportunity within, and just started kind of chipping away, reaching cold calls, reaching out through LinkedIn, those type of models.
Well, and so with Wellvia at that time, how many years ago was this?
We were acquired just over 2.5 years ago.
2.5 years ago. But when did you move down to Texas? Was it how many years prior?
It's been about 8 years.
Okay, so I was just trying to get a sense of the teledoc model, right? I guess were they the originators? The teledoc would be the first.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So at least that model had proliferated. It was pre-COVID when you came down, so we obviously saw a huge uptick in telehealth utilization from that.
Yeah.
But did the concept or the idea of telehealth at that time, was it commonly known and understood, so it wasn't this huge conceptual sale like it might have been 15 years ago instead?
Yeah, it was understood.
Okay.
It was probably just thinking about how to differentiate ourselves.
Sure.
Or how to tailor telemedicine differently rather than just being stuck in I have Blue Cross Blue Shield, so it's just embedded in my health insurance. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it doesn't add value. How can we add value, utilization, and get telemedicine to be a product that is utilized and creating like cost savings and those type of things?
Yeah, that's one thing too, and we'll get into this probably more when we get more into Recuro, but like telehealth is only as good as the actual utilization itself. Like it gets sort of offered almost as like a baseline layer for most health plans these days, but if you have 3-5% utilization on that, then you're not getting any actual impact to the plan. And so I want to talk about how do you drive that utilization and why it's so important here in a moment. Recuro Health is the largest benefits captive in the United States. With nearly 3,000 captive members, 1.3 billion of stop-loss premium in force, and almost 1 million covered lives, no other benefits captive comes close to Recuro Health's scale. But it's not just about the numbers. Recuro Health is a mission-driven organization, and that mission has two distinct parts. Number one, to make self-insurance simple and more accessible for small to mid-sized employers. And number two, to arm them with the most powerful cost management tools on the market. So if you're an employer frustrated with your healthcare outcomes, or you're a benefits consultant looking for an alternative to the status quo, it's time to consider Recuro Health. Recuro Health, where employers come to do self-insurance right, to do it easily, and to do it at scale. But you said Wellvia was acquired about 2.5 years ago. I want to ask you, running a business, a small business, father-in-law, wife, like, what are the dynamics of something like that, man? Is it challenging at times, or did you enjoy it, or a little both?
I mean, I enjoyed it. Learned a lot.
Okay.
Learned a lot about, running a business, that entrepreneurial spirit, the dynamic of it. Work doesn't stop at dinner.
Yeah.
Right. So, it's a constant conversation about, operational things, sales, revenues, those type of things. It was definitely, even modeling, price models and trying to get like really into the weeds on how we can be a better service to our clients and even as a company. So it was a fantastic learning lesson. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's a immersive lesson, I'm sure. And so if you were in the sales capacity, what was your wife doing at that time?
my wife was in the operational and human resources department.
Cool. Very cool.
So she ran both of those components for us.
And then so it transacted about 2.5 years ago. Recuro acquired Wellvia. Is that
correct?
Understanding? Okay. So what changed then? And we'll inch into Recuro. And if you want to share the story we were alluding to earlier, you're welcome to weave that in however you want to.
Yeah. Well, geez, I could probably just weave it in the beginning. Around, I guess, about 9 years ago, my father had a massive heart attack. He survived it. I moved to Texas. From there, I had my first child, my daughter. Kind of let my health and fitness kind of go down to the wayside.
Okay.
So I went to a doctor, and I was pre-hypertension. My blood work needed. I needed to change some lifestyle habits, and I did. I ended up joining a CrossFit gym, losing around 40 pounds. In that whole capacity, I was talking to somebody. I have a really low resting heart rate. He scared me by saying something on the lines of, if I came to your house and you were unconscious, I would shock you. And he's an EMT.
Because your heart rate was so low.
My heart rate
was like 30 beats a minute at that time?
30 beats a minute.
That's how does a heart rate get that low, man? I mean, just do you know what triggered that, or was it your natural biology, or what?
It's natural. If you're a marathon runner, if your fitness is high, naturally you have a low resting heart rate.
Yeah.
That's at least what I'm told.
Yeah, but even I've heard that, and mine was relatively low playing soccer, and I haven't checked it recently, but it was 56, 60 beats a minute. Like, was still low, right? But you had half that.
Mine had me scared, and it scared me.
Yeah.
It really scared me. So I was like, all right, well, I know that my father had, a massive heart attack. Let me get a cardiologist.
Okay.
So I go to a cardiologist, and we do all kinds of tests. We do stress tests, EKGs, all 4 or 5 tests. Even put a monitor on me for 48 hours. And I remember going back to get my results. And one of the nurses comes out and she's like, "You are way too young for this." And I remember like it was yesterday, and the emotions that came through me, I was like, "What do you mean?"
Yeah, what does that even mean, man?
I have a young family. Like I'm not ready to go.
Yeah.
Right. So the doctor comes in, and I'm freaking out at this point. And he's looking at my blood work, and he's like, "We're going to prescribe you with blood pressure medication." And I'm like, "Okay." Still nervous. And he looks at my blood work, and he's like, "When did you get your blood work done?" I was like, "I don't know, three years prior." He's like, I was like, and like a light went off, and I was like, "I've lost 40 pounds since then."
Yeah. Yeah.
So he was like, "Okay, let's go get more blood work."
Okay. So some of that fear was based on outdated information.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, good. Okay. Thank God.
And I had like a little bit of plaque in my artery, which he was like, "This isn't a big deal, but you don't lose plaque." So I was like, "Okay." He's like, "We can either put you on a very low dose medication, or you don't need to be on medication at all." So I was like, "Well, this is great." So, so fitness has been,
Well, I was going to say, like, tell me about, I had the blood work that was updated, losing 40 pounds, getting fit, right? You probably changed diet and things like that. Did the markers come back in a better position overall?
Yeah. So when it came back, he took the prescriptions off it
altogether.
He goes,
That's awesome.
we can change the dose to do like almost a maintenance level. He goes, "But you don't need it."
Okay, that's great.
Maybe when you get a little older and those type of things. But I was like, okay, so great to know.
Mm-hmm.
It took a lot of my anxiety and fear away. But what it leads to is probably about a year later, my mother passed away of a heart attack. And then 2 months after that, my dad passed away from another heart attack.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So it was And actually, 2 months after my dad passed away, Recuro acquired Wellvia.
Okay.
So then I was brought into this whole new world of virtual primary care and access, or being able to identify, things that might be problematic, such as heart disease, high blood pressure, those type of things.
Yeah.
And how we can approach the market. So I was immediately bought into this advanced virtual care.
Yep.
Of not just the traditional telemedicine or virtual behavioral health, but what we can do now with some of the technology improvements and enhancements that we have.
Yeah, that's one of those things that when we were talking over coffee, that when I asked what kind of key differentiation from a Recuro model, sort of this modern version of telehealth or advanced primary care versus your traditional, what the early stages were. And the thing that you said is that those early stage telehealth didn't really focus on outcomes. It was more about creating better access to healthcare, which is in and of itself obviously a worthwhile endeavor. But just because you now have access to a physician, if they're not doing anything to improve the quality of life or improve outcomes over time, then it's only half the battle. And so your sentiment to me was that Recuro does a good job of driving quality of life improvements and health improvements as well. So how is that accomplished?
Well, so, we take a very consultative approach. So, we have that traditional telemedicine. I understand that that's more of the standard.
Yeah.
Especially with a lot of our partners, virtual behavioral health, like an upsell. And then we have a virtual primary care, and that's getting you access to a dedicated physician for that primary care services that you might need. So the traditional telemedicine, acute care, I have the cold, I have allergies, the flu, those type of things. We can get you in touch with a doctor quickly, under 10 minutes, actually. 9 minutes for all of 2023 for us. But virtual primary care is being able to identify some key indicators that might be problematic for your health over time. So we have access to at-home labs. So it's an asset of ours. Our physician can send it to your home, and it's a dry prick of the finger. A1C and lipid is what we're reading for. So, hypertension, pre-diabetes, we can track some blood numbers that way. And then we also have pharmacogenomics as well. It's how your body metabolizes drugs. It's how I simplify it.
Yep.
And then blood pressure monitoring device we can send to the member's house.
Is that like a cuff, or what does that look like?
Just a cuff.
Okay.
And it's all quarterbacked by our primary care physician. So, we talk about, when you go into your primary care physician's office now, well, it might take a few months before you can even be seen, but the nurse or the aide is doing more of the engagement with you. What are you here for? Let's take your weight. Let's do all those things. You're already inputting all that information, and you're really having dedicated time with your provider, talking about your problems with the provider, not the nurse beforehand. So the value there is greater just in that active conversation.
Well, and even just removing impediments to getting those things. Like I can think about scheduling a primary care physician, and let's say they can't do the labs on site. So then I have to go to a lab corp and go get labs. So that's a second trip, and that's a couple more hours, right? So if you're able to not only get them the labs in home where they can do it with a finger prick, send them back out, get them reviewed, and then have a call with the doctor and never technically have to leave your house. That's a tremendous value add. And so that is different than you said, the acute style sort of, I've got an illness and I just need some, a Z-Pack or whatever. Yep. But what is the idea, right, is if we can get people identified earlier with these conditions, obviously we have more opportunity to either prevent a chronic disease from developing or prevent it from worsening over time, right?
Use my mother as a perfect example. Not that we know of, she didn't have a prior heart attack that we know of. If she could have had access, well, let me take a step back. She was had her own business. She was the caretaker of my father, so she was also doing a lot of work. Was focused on my father and her business, where her healthcare probably went to the wayside as well.
Sure.
Well, leaving the home and trying to take care of yourself and see a doctor, it could take months before you see a doctor. If we could have access this way, we could have identified that there is an issue and could have prevented the event in total.
Sure.
Or if you catch it earlier on, then with, maybe a medication and lifestyle habit changes, you could change the outcome for a long term.
Yeah, sometimes just literally the awareness that either a condition exists or the precursors for a condition exist, right? So like you go, okay, now I'm aware of it, just like your event where you became aware of it and you go, well, I got to lose some weight, or I got to go get fit, or I got to change my diet. I mean, just even that level of awareness right there could get people down a path of correcting some of those things.
Absolutely. And who knows what the percentages that are going to adopt that. But if you're becoming aware of the risk, then you already have the ability to make change. And then you also have the ability to have a conversation with a dedicated physician over the year about a care plan. So you're checking in with your physician now, like how is the diet and exercise routine going? Is it not going so well? So do we need to change our approach? That's where that physician is quarterbacking your care as your dedicated provider.
Yep.
So it's a great value add. It also adds in like our virtual urgent care and behavioral health components as well, all being vertically integrated so that physician can see if you're using other services within. And again, like that dedicated physician, I've said it a few times now, can schedule the follow-up with you live. So you could see that physician in 3 months and it's already going to be identified in your portal for that follow-up. And you're talking maybe 15 minutes of dedicated time with your provider.
Well, and I think the multidisciplinary aspect is important. There's a gentleman named Brian Marcotte who was the CEO of Business Group on Health. He also ran Honeywell's benefits for a number of years. So really, really large-scale organization. Yeah. I sat down with him at a couple of the Pareto members meetings and we had conversations. And one of the things that he knew and what you're speaking to is that really truly advanced primary care has to have multiple disciplines underneath it where they can integrate a behavioral health. They could even integrate a pediatrics. They could integrate pharmacogenomics. He says they sort of whiteboarded what should primary care actually be. Let's like reverse engineer it and turn it into what we want it to truly be, like as a solution. That's kind of what you're describing to me as well, is like that ability to coordinate all of those components of a whole person's healthcare journey, if you will, inside of a single platform. Because if you only focus on one thing at a time, you're probably not coordinating between those physicians of what actually is going on with that whole person.
Absolutely. And then even taking a step further with our partners, and everybody has other avenues of care outside of what we do, and being able to align ourselves with our partners to direct that member to where they need to go. So when it does become outside of the virtual component and we need to do some type of other specialty work or anything like that, aligning ourselves with our partners to make sure that member doesn't get lost in maybe, is it point solution fatigue or is it just in the healthcare system alone?
Yeah.
We can try to push them towards our partners who have already established, those workflows or the care navigation components.
Yeah, I was just saying care navigation, it obviously is a big part of this, right? We all know our healthcare system is massively complex, and that's for even you and me, right? So you think about the average person that might interface with it infrequently or doesn't understand benefits, they're at the mercy of wherever they're recommended to go.
PlanSight is a complete game changer in the world of insurance brokering. As a broker, you know how time-consuming and error-prone the traditional RFP process can be. But what if I told you there's a better way? PlanSight is the only end-to-end RFP solution on the market made specifically for benefits agencies. It's like having a superpower that gets you an average of 8 to 10 hours back per employer renewal per year. And the best part? PlanSight supports all carriers, all funding types, and all group sizes for over 20 different benefits. If you're ready to make your RFP process faster, more efficient, and more profitable, it's time to call PlanSight. Visit plansight.com now to book a free demo and discover the future of insurance renewals.
So does Recuro help with that care navigation component to a degree and even the coordination of benefits and stuff like that?
Yeah, to a degree. We have a concierge team that helps. Really, it's always about aligning with our team. So, we have our virtual urgent care, we have our virtual behavioral health, and our virtual primary care, and different levels of everything are involved in that. But if our partner has a care or clinical navigation team that there's like preferred vendors or preferred physician networks or whatever it may be, we can refer them back into that partner to make sure that continuity of care is still intact.
Yeah, I think people nowadays need somebody to somewhat hold their hand. I'm including myself in that people. It's like, oh, okay, well, you need this test. Okay, where do I go? Well, here, let me help you find the right location. One of our vendor partners that we use or that we offer within Pareto is the KISS card, which is now Valence. And that has a component of direct contracts where, let's say John needed an MRI. John could go to whoever the physician referred them to, which may or may not be $3,500 or $2,500, maybe in network, maybe out of network, or the KISS card could intervene and say, John, we see you need an MRI. Well, we found 3 locations within this vicinity. If you go to this one, it's only $600. And oh, by the way, we waive your out-of-pocket costs. And so it's like a really cool solution for a component of the healthcare journey. You need somebody helping and intervening at the right moment because there's a timeliness issue as well. If it's done too slow or it didn't get triggered in advance, well, that member, John, just goes to where they were told to go, and now they have a massive out-of-pocket expense, and the plan incurs a larger expense as well.
Yep.
Like, we need more intervention for things like that.
Absolutely. And I even think about when you are brought up with a potential healthcare issue, such as, you might have, your blood pressure's high or your cholesterol's high or, plus you have heart disease in your family. So you're having like a very deep conversation with your primary care physician. We want to make sure that that member isn't left by themselves to like navigate that information that was just left with them.
Absolutely.
How can we help you like change or like improve your outcome?
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned urgent care. I want to go back to that because I don't want to say I'm skeptical of it, but like the initial reaction, right? You hear urgent care, you go, well, it's urgent. I need to go somewhere right now, right? So like, how can virtual urgent care help triage some of that, the panic that might ensue or the indecision? Is it an ER? Is it an urgent care? Like, talk to me about the timeliness of that and how could urgent care truly intervene virtually? What are some situations where it works really well?
I mean, I'm a big supporter of traditional telemedicine, virtual urgent care, because when it's done right, it's really adding a lot of value. And, I said, aligning with our partners, and that's really where it starts because utilization is key for virtual urgent care to save the out-of-pocket cost for an urgent care visit or an emergency room visit. If we could put that in front of some of these plan designs, and allow the member to know that this might be a $0 out-of-pocket cost to them. Okay. Like, let us be your first line of defense rather than be like, oh, I do have a telemedicine on the back of my insurance card. I'm not sure what it does. Like, we want to work with our partners to work on engagement campaigns. How can we align ourselves to fit what the partner is doing? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what is that? Do we need to do educational seminars? Do we need to do a single sign-on within our partner platforms? We'll do all of those things because we do believe that getting access to virtual urgent care can alleviate a lot of some of those costs that we see.
Well, and I'm just thinking as I'm listening to you and thinking about too, like situationally, not everything is actually urgent, right? Especially you, and you've got young kids. We believe everything might be urgent with our kids, and in reality, most of them are probably not. But you sort of overcompensate, or just like out of an abundance of caution, choose to go to an ER or choose to go to an urgent care when the situation may not have necessitated it. So like this could also act as like, hey, calm down. Probably just got a cough. Maybe you have croup was one that we had to deal with recently. So you almost like bring people back from the panic mode a little bit as well.
Absolutely. I mean, if I was to pull out my phone, you'd probably see 20 consultations. Because like you said, I have 2 little kids. Yep. Ear infections are common. High fevers are common. So I get to call and speak with a physician, MD or DO, within that 9 minutes. Usually it's under 10 minutes always for us. And on occasion it goes a little longer, but it gives you that reassurance that everything's okay. Yeah. Take these precautions. You might get amoxicillin, which is something pretty standard with kids under 5 years old. Yeah. But I've even used our urgent care for a skin rash. Okay. So even like, the things that people don't even think about using urgent care for, like.
Well, how does Recuro differentiate between this as a primary care style visit versus an urgent? Is a member dictating what they believe, or do you triage it somehow to make that determination?
Well, so both ways, really. Okay. So if you go through our portal, the member's going to dictate it. They're going to say, if they have access to our entire suite of services, they're going to pick the program or the product that they want to use. It's, primary care or the urgent care. The urgent care is going to be, immediate access to it. The primary care, if they go that route, it's just going to be scheduling a visit. So if they want a scheduled visit with their primary care, and again, they're dedicated primary physicians. So if they've already picked one, they're going to be looking at their dedicated physician's availability.
Okay.
So that physician could be available in the same day. That's very likely, or the next day, or it could be a week later.
Okay, so the primary component still has like normal office hours as a guardrail for that. Okay.
They could still go ahead and schedule that visit, or they could say, I want to talk to a provider now. And then they get access, within that provider, they get we bridge a call, and they are talking to, a physician within that, that 10 minutes. All that is kept in our platform for the member, so the member can go back. If it's an urgent care visit, we record all the transcripts, so the members can now go back and re-listen to that, and they can see the notes the physician wrote and then the prescription he wrote or did not write. So he could over the counter, they can go back and look at that. And it's all right there. It's also available for that primary care physician. So if you do have a follow-up in a couple of weeks,
they get access to that.
They get access to that information.
Smart.
So they could even follow up with you on, hey, Spencer, I know that you called in and you had a fever. How are you feeling now? And you can have a conversation on your treatment and how everything went.
Well, and so the last category that you brought up, and then we can kind of move downstream to like, who's this for, what type of group, self-funding, fully insured, size, et cetera. The behavioral health component, I think, is worthwhile to talk about. It's something that we at Pareto talk about a lot. It seems to be a common theme, especially emerging out of COVID and the uptick in mental health sort of diagnosis and situations that people are dealing with. So what does the behavioral health component look like virtually in your platform?
It's very similar to what our virtual primary care is. It's to be a talk therapy.
Okay.
Not an EAP. So this is not, on demand or, for a couple minutes. This is, again, with a dedicated counselor. We have psychiatry as well. So if you need that medication side of the behavioral health component, we have that. Again, that is also a scheduled visit with a dedicated psychiatrist. But you go on, you get to view a professional headshot of all of our counselors in the state. A biography, so what their specialty might be, they might be, a licensed social worker, or marriage and family therapist, so you get to see what that specialty is. And then, again, you're scheduling times, and, the national average varies, but it could be 8 to 10 weeks before, depending on where you are in the United States, before you can see a counselor.
Wow.
Depending on what you're going through in that moment, that might be way too long.
Yeah, for sure.
And we're not a suicide hotline by any means. But if you are dealing with, depression or anxiety, or maybe you were laid off from your job, well, if you're still getting the benefit, right, you have access to a provider, a counselor, to have a conversation with them, and then you can have the follow-ups throughout the, course.
Those type of services, though, are still restricted by state lines, right? Like you can't practice, at least today, right? You can't practice psychiatry across state lines virtually. Is that correct?
Unless you have a license. You can have multiple state licenses.
Okay, right. But if you were only licensed in Texas, you couldn't serve a member in Oklahoma, as an example, or something. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, and there was somebody that I had on recently. I think the company was Mind and Match, and she was trying to set up a virtual like national network, and to try to solve for that problem. Right, as if we have sort of a, what would you say, a dearth of available psychiatrists, right? Or there's what is the word I'm trying to look for? A lack of supply. Ultimately, then how do you get access to care, right? That's why we have 8 to 10 weeks of turnaround time of waiting to see a physician. So the virtual component can ease some of that burden of the demand that might be there.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen, tremendous increase. It's probably, our behavioral health is our highest adopted product right now.
Okay.
I see that eventually, as our virtual primary care is more and more brought to the market and to people's attention, that'll take place because it all can work together in one. But, over the past couple of years, virtual behavioral health, very highly adopted. It adds a lot of value because of you are speaking with a therapist, and you can have a video consultation with our therapist as well. They're all 1099, so it's our network of providers, both on the medical and on the counseling side. So they're vetted through us. We take everything very seriously. So if you have a bad experience, we follow up with the member, but it's to add significant value. And that's being able to give them access we've been able to do it within 48 hours. Now it's also, to say that that's dependent on the member as well.
Sure.
Because if they don't want to see a member within a counselor who's available in 48 hours, but they want to see someone next Monday, they can go to next Monday. If it's a specific counselor, they can choose a time that's available for them.
Okay, makes sense. Well, so then what type of employers? Because we were talking over coffee, obviously some jumbo employers that you are, hopefully bringing on board. But like, does it matter group size? Does it matter if they're fully insured or self-funded? Give me some of the brass tacks stuff.
No, I mean, for us, it's really aligning with our partners. So do we work with some direct to employer groups? Absolutely, we do. We don't discriminate on size because there's always an opportunity for us to figure something out.
Okay.
In terms of solution, we have partners, platforms, TPAs, hospital systems. We work with everybody, and it's really, again, aligning that what that partner might be doing differently in the healthcare space. How do they see telemedicine, and talking to me how I see telemedicine, and where we can kind of find a middle ground that really might add that valuable component.
Well, you said like partners, like it makes sense, right? That the TPA might want to deploy your services, right? Because ultimately this could enhance what they do from the medical adjudication side and controlling costs of claims. Like this is a really nice value add that helps them as a third party administrator as well.
Yep, and we align our company with claim submission, so we can do all of that. It's really, again, it's that open dialogue. There's no cookie cutter fit, and I say this, I really believe in not being a vendor, being a partner. So having an open dialogue of where we see virtual care, not just telemedicine, virtual care as a whole, and identifying the populations that might have better opportunity, because we do have a lot of data that shows that, this might be a group that has high adoption for telemedicine. They might be a high utilizer. Mm-hmm. They might be a great opportunity to add virtual behavioral health to it, or virtual primary care, because that population has already adopted the philosophy of virtual care and they think that it has value.
Well, and how do you drive like long-term kind of showing of ROI, right? Because we were having the discussion about outcomes, right? And I can certainly draw a through line between that early intervention, detection, coordination of care to better outcomes. But like at some point, right, you got to quantify it, right? And then if you can't quantify it, then a stop-loss carrier would be interested in, or brokers would be interested in proving the ROI that might actually offset the expense side of this. So like, how do y'all track that and aggregate that data then to show the proof itself?
The simplest form is that before any visit with a provider, we ask, if it wasn't for a Recuro, where would you have gone? Mm-hmm. And that could be urgent care, emergency room, PCP, nobody. And so we had a value to that. And it can actually be customized based on our partnership with, possibly a plan. That's the easiest way that we capture a out-of-pocket cost or cost avoidance. We capture utilization data. We capture CPT codes. So we capture a lot of data, and it's just a matter of how we implement that into long-term cost savings.
Yeah.
And we can do many things because we are capturing so much data.
Yeah, you could easily show like this ICD-10 code would be X, instead it was 0, or it was baked
Correct.
into the plan. The harder part, which was the special sauce, is if over time you can prove like, hey, we detected this heart condition early, and therefore with a very high likelihood we prevented a catastrophic event, but that may have been 10 years from now, 15 years from now. Like you can't exactly prove that. But you certainly can demonstrate that if you got them on a maintenance medication, you got them to lose weight, you got their blood pressure under control. In all likelihood, you probably saved an event at some point in that person's life.
Or at least delayed one.
Delayed it.
Right.
Yeah, delayed it significantly. Yeah.
ClaimDoc is a medical claim auditing and member advocacy company. We provide fiduciary services to employer-sponsored benefit plans, and allowing them to create an environment where we ensure that the benefit plans are being charged in a fair and reasonable basis.
My business is basically people, and it become a real simple transition. We thought it was going to be far more complex. I've saved, we'll say, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I could not say enough about ClaimDoc.
Well, one of the challenges I've heard of, and it's a pretty new idea to me, I heard somebody speak about churn recently, where we're always buying healthcare in 12-month cycles, and therefore employees and then our employers are focused on, well, like what happened in this 12-month cycle. And it's unfair sometimes to the solution partners that are given only 12 months or maybe 24 months to ultimately prove their value. It's like, well, how do I do that if there's employee churn during that period of time and there's not a long enough runway ultimately to show exactly what happened within a plan over time? Do you have any sentiment about that, or like what's the right time frame to be looking at sort of an ROI component to this?
I don't, but I want to talk about, being able to, if we do have access and we do have that data, there is value there. If we see utilization, there's definitely a tremendous amount of value that could be added to the plan. I guess maybe I didn't understand the question.
No, that's fine. Yeah, it's one of those questions I sort of think about on the fly, but it's like this myopic view, especially like I'm in the risk business, right? So there's a myopic view of, we think and buy in 12-month cycles. And one of the big things that Pareto's trying to get consultants and their employers to think about is like, think about how you're going to manage your risk over a 5-year horizon and not just a 1-year horizon. Because if you're only focused on that myopic 1-year horizon, you're churning a lot. You're making decisions in very short cycles and things aren't getting a chance to play out. With something like Recuro, especially early on as adoption is starting to tick up and you're sort of seeing the impact that it's having to a plan, I suspect you have a similar horizon of sort of like proving the efficacy of something like Recuro is probably a 3 to 5 year, if not beyond, runway. And so an employer, and this is me thinking out loud as an employer, I need to have that conceptual buy-in early on to something like this and not just look at it and go, oh, well, it didn't save us enough money in 12 months. So next, and they abandon the idea. I imagine that's part of your sales conversation you're having with these employers for sure.
Yes. And what I like to do is I'd have at a minimum a quarterly review with my partners where we look at the utilization data. Let's identify if this isn't working, because if we need to pivot, let's pivot early and not be reactive towards the end. Because the long term is, that 5 years of actually getting care to a dedicated physician. We don't want to jump from dedicated physician to dedicated physician because you're losing a lot of that. You don't want to constantly repeat yourself. Like, this is my history, this is my family history, and then if you change again, then you're going through all of that again. So being able just to be accessible to your partners and talk through like, all right, if we're not getting the utilization of this product, what do we need to do differently so that we are going to show that data that's going to give that ROI or that out-of-pocket cost?
Yeah, and you want utilization, right? It's not, I don't think you guys are trying to just sell a product and collect a PEPM and then hope nobody uses it.
Absolutely not. We want utilization because it actually gives you the data that says that we're actually doing what we're saying we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, how do you see the space evolving if we want to kind of flash forward in the way that we look at this conversation is how do you view AI, the component that might play? How do you view maybe the services expanding? I mean, are you guys thinking about the next few years of healthcare evolution and where Recuro can position itself to be in front of that? Yeah,
I mean, we have a fantastic team at Recuro, especially in our executive leadership and seeing where we're going to be going in the horizon. Like this isn't a one product and like, let's see how much of the footprint we can put on the United States with just this one, virtual primary care. It's what can we do to expand and continue to evolve. And we have our chief technology officer came to us. He's got medical background, was at Kaiser for a long time and was at Kaiser during the COVID era. And he's talked about using AI and how that's going to add significant value into the care of our membership and how it can, that the AI learning or machine learning of it will be able to ask the open-ended questions to get more information so that the physician has more resources at their fingertips. Blows my mind. For one, and I would love to see it. And I think that we will be seeing it in the next year or two. It's just a matter of, making sure that we don't get, my opinion, too far ahead of our skis. Do what we do and stay in our lane and do it right.
Yeah, you were describing it earlier. It's like you want to still be the best in your lane, right? Like you can get really distracted looking over here and, obviously you get sidetracked on what your core value proposition is. I totally get that. But then over time, it's very natural. We feel the same thing. It's like your customers start asking for other stuff too. And it's like, well, can you do this? Or what do y'all know about this? And it's like, well, we do this thing really well. Don't forget that's what you came to us for. But you do do have to continue to sort of stay apprised, and we view ourselves as sort of industry thought leaders too. So and I think maybe the market has viewed us as that, and they're demanding that of us. So that means you got to constantly be in front of innovation too.
I mean, you got to evolve. You got to evolve. So that's like the big component, and being able to, like, our core is to give quality care. That's what we want to do from A to Z, whether it's the traditional telemedicine all the way behavioral health and virtual primary care, and however we kind of tailor that one. Quality care is where we put our name on, and that's, and we track that. Like, our member satisfaction and physician satisfactions are in the 90s, and that is super important to us because that's what keeps people coming back. That's part of that utilization conversation, or that net promoter score that we have of 81, where they're going to, promote us out into the world. But again, like, evolving and, with the things that are coming available, like AI, is, as long as we align it correctly, it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I just look at what you guys do, and whether it is a Recuro or somebody else in that space, like, this starts to become one of those things that just absolutely needs to be a part of the plan as of this point. There's really no argument against having at least a virtual offering of some sort, because our worlds are so busy and fast paced, and, with the shortages of physicians that we're seeing across the country in different specialties, like, it's necessary almost to solve for that. Otherwise, people just have those ridiculous wait times, or they don't end up going to see a doctor at all, right? Yeah.
Which is the worst case, not going to see a doctor at all.
Yeah. And so I look at, like, is this something like that? Is it should be explored, whether or not, again, if it's a Recuro or something else, it should be explored. I think it's a necessary component of the plan. So why don't we go big picture for a second, Jon, and then we'll finish the episode. You've been in the healthcare space for what, 8-9 years now or so? Do you think we're going to, quote unquote, solve it? Do you think we're going to see more government intervention? Do you think private sector can, like, I always ask people to sort of philosophically look at our system and say, is it going to work? Is it going to fail? Are we going to fix it? Or is this going to be a lifelong endeavor for you and I, and our work is never done? What do you think?
I think it's going to be a lifelong endeavor for us. I think it'll go past our time on this planet, which is unfortunate, but I guess it keeps us working for a brighter future for our kids. There's so much that needs to be changed, and there's so much opportunity for change.
Absolutely.
It's really just a matter of, getting those bigger organizations to come to an understanding. There's too much out there that, when you really go in, like, the self-funding space, and you really break down everything and how much money, I want to say, goes to waste, because
it definitely goes to waste.
Goes to waste. It's mind-boggling. And, going through my parents having events, and, the cost that they charge the plan for some of those things is insane. And we've got friends in the industry who've had similar experiences where they've actually gone down the route of fighting those battles on the bills. It's a long journey, and I think we're all going in the right direction. I think we all want the same outcomes, and, I just think that it's going to take a lot more time than we think.
Well, it's going to take a lot more time. What I envision probably happening, or maybe this is more hope than envisioning it actually happening, is that you're going to see a push towards personal autonomy in healthcare, whether it's wearables that are giving better information, it's easy access to labs and things like that, like empowering the individual to have data, and then using, like, an AI piece of software to empower a physician to help quarterback that care, but, like, giving us as individuals more information so that we can be out in front of our own personal healthcare. Like that journey is a silly word, but the responsibility we have as human beings to take care of ourselves. I think right now what's missing is giving us the information without having to go to an authority figure of some sort in order to triage that and make sense of it. I hope is that through that type of tech, you and I will know, well, what's my A1C today? What's my blood pressure right now? What's my heart rate right now? Other biomarkers that might be easily available and readable. And then with a wearable, then can be triggered in case there is some sort of warning that's out there. I think that's going to probably happen to a significant degree.
And I would think that would be wonderful, because there's going to be a percentage of that population who are actually going to do something about it.
Yep.
And there's always going to be the population who's not. And that's just our culture anyways. And that's what we're trying to do right now by, getting in front of the member. If they do come do a consultation and they want to get their labs and they have the conversation with that provider, they have the opportunity to make a change, or to do something about it. You can only do so much. You can't force somebody to do something they're not comfortable doing.
Yeah, but it's like once that awareness, I don't know if you're like this, but once I'm aware of something, it's very hard for me to unknow it and forget or pretend it doesn't exist, right? That and it is up to the individual to decide to make that change. But like if you put that awareness into their mind, if they choose to ignore it, then they're willfully ignoring it, and that's more on them. I just think once you have data and it's actionable data, it's like hard to justify not deploying, like changing your behavior as a result of that information.
And I don't know the data, but there's so much. I probably could find it after this the show, but the cost of preventable outcomes that happen, what the cost of the healthcare system is probably staggering.
Yep.
And being able to get data, if it's from a wearable, if it's from a virtual system, to say like these are actionable items to make things better. That's like one of my. People might say it's a dual problem, not a dual problem, but it's like a blessing and a curse for me. Is when I have a problem, like I want to fix it. I want to fix it immediately.
Same. Yeah.
And so if you get some people that want that, like you can really, there can be some changes, especially on the outcome level, and seeing that
well, it's accountability, right? And that's really what probably what we're driving at. And I hope there's a really massive push to understand that food is medicine, and we even help incentivize better food choices. There's a company, the guy's name's Callie Means, and I forgot the company. He's recently on a Tucker episode, and he's talking about, I think they use FSA, HSA funds to be able to buy food, right? To buy shop for supplements and food. They figured out a way to make it, compliant and be able to be deployed for food, right? And that's where everything starts with us as human beings. So anyways, I'm going to probably start talking and have another podcast episode in me about that, but let's go ahead and we'll finish up now, Jon. So why don't we do some closing thoughts, man, for the folks that were listening this far? Like what's one or two things you want to leave them with to think about?
Just that there's, I've been through some of, the things that, that are going to happen in life. Some things can be caught early on and we can change things. Virtual care can be a tool for us. Recuro has that ability to kind of put that in front, and being able to align ourselves with our partners, we can really give access and we can really, drive utilization so that we are getting these members access to care, not just on their own free will. We can really kind of push engagement, so we can see some of this data and really start seeing some tangible changes. But then also, the urgent care behavioral health side, it's a great opportunity to kind of put things in front of a plan that really are going to add significant value to your membership or your clients. Would love to have more conversations about it, but.
Yeah, talk to Jon. That's what you got to do. Is talk to Jon. Yeah. So Jon, I appreciate you, man. Really a pleasure to get to know you over those last couple of years, man. And thanks for finally we're able to get this coordinated. Even though you're local, right? It was a timing issue. But I always appreciate folks coming on and talking about innovative stuff like this. And so I can't thank you enough for joining me, man.
Yeah. Likewise. Thank you. I appreciate it.